A dairy farm in New York State became the home for Woodstock and groundbreaking music history.
What really happened behind the lens at the legendary Woodstock Festival of 1969? Today, we're unveiling never-before-seen photos that reveal secrets, untold stories, and the raw beauty of this iconic cultural phenomenon. Stay tuned as we dive into the hidden moments of peace, love, chaos, and the untamed spirit that defined a generation. But there's one photo that remains more mysterious than the rest. Can you guess which one? The raw freedom captured on film. What made Woodstock the counterculture's beating heart? First, let's talk about something that defines it: freedom. Freedom like the kind you read about in history books or political talks. Freedom like the kind you could feel in the mud under your feet and the air full of possibilities. There are hidden pictures from Woodstock that show a sense of freedom that is so real, it's almost tangible. In one striking picture, a young woman is dancing barefoot in the rain with her arms raised to the sky. She was by herself, with no one else around. In another shot, a bunch of strangers are laughing and eating together as if they'd known each other their whole lives. These pictures say, "We are free to be together as we are." But here's the catch. These weren't just random events. The acts were protests, you may ask, against what? The rules that suffocate people. During that time, most society told people they had to dress, act, and live in a certain way. But at Woodstock, those rules were thrown out the window like yesterday's newspaper. Being naked, fully accepted. People don't take off their clothes to scare people, they do it because they feel free. A popular picture shows a man and a woman walking through a field holding hands and not wearing any clothes. Aside from being real, they weren't actors or troublemakers. But why were these pictures kept secret for so long? It's possible that they didn't fit the story people wanted to tell about the 1960s. It's easier to make a gathering look fancy with flower crowns and guitar solos than to face the dirty, unpolished truth. We need to rethink what freedom really looks like because these pictures are messy, real, and completely human. One especially creepy picture shows a group of people sleeping on the ground on tarps and blankets that they had made into beds. Peaceful slumber or survival could have been in the description. They looked both weak and strong, like soldiers taking a break between fights. Do not forget that Woodstock was more than just a festival, it was a battleground for a cultural change. Don't forget the quiet protests that are written into these pictures. Close-up of a young man wearing a jacket that says, "Make love, not war." This is a strong but quiet protest against the Vietnam War. The picture of a group of people raising their hands together shows unity and could have been taken at any protest at any time. Still more interesting is the fact that these pictures don't just tell the story of Woodstock, they tell our story too. They show that everyone wants to connect with others, express themselves, and be free. And even though these times seem eternal, they were only there for a short time. There's a good chance that many of the people in these pictures never saw each other again. Still, they were family for those 3 days. Why were these pictures kept secret for so long? Some say it's because they caused too much trouble at the time. Others think that the roughness of these pictures doesn't match up with the polished, nostalgic picture of Woodstock that was sold to later generations. The truth might be somewhere in the middle. Finally, though, we've found these pictures of a world without filters. They make us wonder, would these pictures have changed the way we think about Woodstock and the 1960s in general if they had come out sooner? This is only the beginning. These pictures are very honest and open, but there's more to come. Just wait until you see what the cameras caught besides the music. The untold creativity that lit up Woodstock. A lot of times when people think of Woodstock, they picture the big stage, the loudspeakers, and the famous performances. But there was something just as powerful going on behind the electrifying acts. A personal explosion of creation that reached every part of that muddy field. These hidden pictures tell us that personal stories are what really moved people, not the music that made the news. In one picture, a young woman is sitting on the ground with her legs crossed and weaving a flower crown with as much focus as a singer on stage. From the outside, it might look like a simple boredom act, but it was actually a message. Each petal was a sign of peace and a hidden message that even the smallest act of making something new could be a way to protest a world that is being destroyed all the time. This quiet craft might have been what made Woodstock's spirit unique. Then there was the lone guitarist who was high above the crowd and playing a song that no one could hear because the stage was so loud. He wasn't playing for everyone, he was just playing for himself. It's a reminder that you don't need a crowd to be creative. Some of the most real moments at Woodstock were the ones that didn't make the news or the record books. Another secret gem of a picture shows a group of people huddled around a makeshift drum circle they made out of buckets, tin cans, and even rocks. It didn't matter that the flow was off and the notes weren't perfect. The relationship was what was important. Strangers joined the band as members, and each beat matched the heartbeat of a generation that was dying to feel alive. Don't forget about the artists either. In one very striking picture, a man is sitting in the mud and smearing paint on a canvas that has been attached to a tree with his hands. It was raining and the paint was running, making designs that he couldn't control. Was it art or chaos? It was both at Woodstock, just like in real life. The interesting thing is that these creative times weren't isolated, they spread. In one picture, a group of people are standing in a circle and making a structure out of sticks and wildflowers. Not a professional artist worked on it. It was made by regular festival goers who wanted to leave something important. Like the memories they made, their art was short-lived but memorable. So why were these pictures hidden away while the huge performances on stage got all the attention? Maybe they didn't fit the story of Woodstock that became popular after the fact. After all, a 20-minute Jimi Hendrix guitar solo sells records, but a picture of a teenager painting in the mud without shoes doesn't. Still, these secret parts of the story make it more real and deeper. What if the real impact of Woodstock wasn't the music it made people make, but the raw creativity it sparked? It was clear from every flower crown, off-key song, and muddy painting that we are more than just customers. We are also creators. These private acts of resistance showed that beauty could grow even in the midst of chaos. As we learn more about these people, one question stays with us. Would we remember Woodstock differently if we could see it through the eyes of its unknown artists? Stay with us, because the next part of the story takes us even deeper into the festival's heart, where love was more than just an emotion. It was a call to action. The compassionate side of Woodstock you never knew. Woodstock wasn't just a party, it started a movement. Even though the dancing and music stole the show, there was another message that could be heard clearly in the muddy fields: kindness. There were peace signs and tie-dye shirts, but hidden photos show that there were also strong calls for love for the world and all of its living things. One picture stands out. It's of a sign that was drawn by hand and says, "Love your animal friends, don't eat them." Not only was this a strange thought, it was a new statement for its time. People used to eat a lot of meat and animal rights weren't talked about much. But this easy sign started a movement for change. Could Woodstock have been the unspoken start of the modern fight for animal rights? Then there were the pet friends who came to the party. One picture that has become famous shows a dirty dog relaxing on a blanket while people at the event smile. The dog was a part of the Woodstock family and wasn't on a leash or in a crate. These animals weren't pets. They were friends and representations of the balance between people and nature that the event aimed to honor. Animals were just one part of the message, though. In a different secret gem, a group of activists hand out homemade pamphlets about going vegetarian and living in a way that doesn't harm the environment. At the time, these ideas were so far-fetched that some people laughed at them. Still, when I look back, they seem like prophecies. It seems like Woodstock wasn't just a gathering, but also a look into a better future. Also, don't forget about the quieter times that were caught on film. In one scary picture, a young woman is holding a lost kitten that she found in the chaos. It looks like she's found peace in the middle of all the chaos, because her face is calm and almost parental. It's a lesson that love can show up in the smallest, strangest ways. So why didn't these events get as much attention as the music? It's possible that they didn't fit the picture of Woodstock that the media was trying to sell. That's a catchy slogan: peace, love, and rock and roll. But what about peace, love, and no meat? Not really. They are, however, just as much a part of Woodstock's history as the famous shows. It's even more interesting to see how these ideas have changed over time. Times like these are the roots of the health food movement, the rise of vegetarianism, and the acceptance of animal rights by most people. It's like Woodstock put seeds that won't bloom for decades. Today, would the world be different if these words had been heard back then? That's the real question. Could we have made kindness a bigger part of our culture faster? We are sure that these secret pictures will make us think about Woodstock in a new way, but there's still more to find. Next, we'll talk about the chaos, the debate, and the stories that the press didn't want you to know about Woodstock. Stay put, because the truth that hasn't been told is about to begin. What the press didn't tell you about Woodstock's muddy reality. People think of a sea of tie-dye and happy dancing when they think of Woodstock. But deep in the files are pictures that show the festival's less glamorous side, a heartwarming example of how strong people can be. Woodstock wasn't just a party. It was a test of how patient, tough, and flexible you could be. When it rained, the fields turned into a bog, soaking tents, clothes, and spirits. In a very striking picture, people at the event are wading knee-deep in mud, their faces showing a mix of amusement and determination. It's interesting how they accepted the chaos and made a playground out of the muck. People who didn't know each other cheered each other on as they slid down mudslides. It turned into a sign of the carefree, unbending spirit of the 1960s from something that could have been a disaster. Then, there were the temporary fixes. Photos show people waiting in line to splash water on their faces or fill up their water bottles at water faucets that were also used as cooling stations. Others show people using their imagination to get through the chaos. For example, one man was seen making a raincoat out of plastic bags. It wasn't fancy, but it was useful, which was a great example of Woodstock's make-it-work attitude. But maybe the most interesting picture is of tired festival-goers lying on top of cars and using the windshields as beds. These times weren't about love and peace. They were about having to. Still, there's beauty in how simple they are. These private shots show something deeper than the main stage ever could. A generation coming together in both happiness and hardship. In a picture that is rarely seen, workers are seen giving cold attendees sandwiches and blankets. They were the unsung heroes who kept the festival going, but their names weren't in the news. In a different picture, a bunch of strangers are huddling under a tarp to stay warm while it rains. Woodstock wasn't just a concert, it was a community. This is what makes these pictures so powerful. The challenges weren't just for the artists. Protecting the equipment from the weather was important, and many artists played under tarps to stay dry. Behind the scenes, these moments show how hard people worked to make Woodstock happen. So why aren't these pictures on the front of history books? Maybe it's because they don't fit the idealized story of Woodstock as a perfect dream. But these pictures tell a deeper, more real story. Even though there was mud and chaos, they tell us that there was a strong sense of being together. The strength of the people at Woodstock turned mudslides into memories. What does that say about the human spirit? Maybe Woodstock wasn't just about the music. It was also about showing that happiness and chaos can live together. Keep reading, because next we'll show you the faces behind the music, the stars who lived the Woodstock dream on and off the stage, the secret lives of Woodstock legends you never knew. Woodstock wasn't just about the music, it was also about the people who made it. And while the legends are known for their amazing acts, rare photos give us a look at them in their natural state, where the line between star and person became less clear. Take the case of Jimi Hendrix. Most people remember his famous performance of the Star-Spangled Banner. But there is a less well-known picture of him backstage with his guitar slung over his shoulder and a mysterious smile on his face. It feels like getting a glimpse of a friend when you hear this side of Hendrix. What was going through his mind before he made history? You can still guess about that with these casual shots. That brings us to Janis Joplin, who was the queen of honest feeling. One secret gem of a picture shows her laughing while her famous feathered boa falls off her shoulders as she talks to people. It's very different from the powerful artist who sang "Piece of My Heart" on stage. She wasn't a rock star at that time, she was just Janis talking to the people who loved her. George Harrison went to the event even though he wasn't supposed to be there. There is a rare picture of him in the crowd, and his usual calm attitude blends in with the rest of the people there. Imagine being right next to a Beatle and not realizing it until much later. That's how magical Woodstock was. Even artists who weren't very well known had vulnerable moments that were caught on film. Many people first heard Indian classical music through Ravi Shankar's sitar playing. In this shot, he is tuning his instrument with a calm focus that shows how dedicated he is. These quieter times tell us that Woodstock's magic wasn't just in the music, it was also in the people who made it. But it wasn't just the artists in the candid shots. One very moving picture shows an artist having a quiet moment with a fan while signing a record cover that has been wet with rain. The short but powerful conversation reminds us that at Woodstock, there wasn't much between the artists and the crowd. So why are these times important? Because they give the tales a human touch. These pictures bring celebrities back to earth in a world where they are often put on pedestals that are out of reach. They show that even the people who defined an age had times when they were scared, happy, and connected. The real question is how we would remember Woodstock stars if these honest times had been shared as widely as the performances. Not as untouchable stars, but as real people who put everything they had into making something memorable. Next, we'll go even deeper into the Woodstock facts that were kept from the public. What did people really do when the cameras were off? What you thought you knew might change after you get the facts. The story isn't over yet, so stay tuned. The photos they didn't want you to see. At Woodstock, photographers weren't just taking pictures of a music festival, they were capturing the heartbeat of a change. But not every picture they took got seen by the public. Every famous picture of peace signs and huge groups hides a treasure trove of moments that have been kept secret for decades. Why did some of these pictures stay hidden on purpose? Think about the stories that these pictures tell. One shows a group of friends laughing in the rain while sitting on the hood of a beat-up Volkswagen. Even though their clothes are wet, their smiles show that they are not afraid of the storm. Another picture shows a young woman braiding daisies into the hair of a stranger while she is totally unaware that the camera is there. These aren't just pictures. They're memories of people being human in their most honest and unfiltered form. There were photographers at Woodstock who were just as important to the story as the acts. In rare interviews, they talk about the problems they had, like film rolls getting wet and damaged and cameras not working in the mud. It was also very chaotic trying to record such a big event. One shooter said that he climbed up a shaky scaffold to get a picture of the crowd, even though it put him at risk of getting hurt. What made them go to such lengths? It could have been that they knew they weren't just taking shots, but recording history. But not every picture they took was shown to everyone. At the time, some were thought to be too controversial, too personal, or just too honest for major media to cover. A recently found picture of this kind shows a couple holding hands under a homemade tarp. Their faces are worn out but filled with quiet happiness. Why wasn't this shown with the famous pictures? It might not have fit with the glossy story of Woodstock as a perfect haven. Other shooters have said they didn't take pictures because they respected the people in the pictures. For many people, Woodstock was a very personal event, and the photographers took on the role of unofficial guardians of those private times. The best picture is sometimes the one you don't take or the one you choose not to show, someone said. They help us remember that Woodstock was more than just a show. It was a rainbow of feelings: happiness, tiredness, strength, and real connection. We know more about that time from the pictures we've seen, but the ones we haven't seen might tell an even more interesting story. So, what else can't be seen? Could there be more hidden treasures that will change how we see this culture phenomenon? Woodstock's legacy isn't just in its music, it's in the untold stories that continue to unfold. Which hidden moment resonated with you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into history's untold chapters. Stay curious, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time.